Hey, Alex from Scrimba here. Welcome to another mock react interview with Cassidy. In this video, Cassidy is joined by Alejandro. Alejandro is such a nice guy. I just have to say right off the bat that he was a fantastic sport. Cassidy and Alejandro hadn't met before this interview, and we didn't give Alejandro a very good idea about what to expect. All of that to say that whilst this isn't a real interview, there was still a healthy dollop of pressure, you know? 3 things real quick before we jump in. Please rate the video, but only like it if you actually like it. Comment if you have something constructive to say or maybe a question. And finally, please check out Scrimba. Specifically, make sure you check out Cassidy's new React interview questions module on Scrimba. In that course, Cassidy gives you a broad range of React interview questions and answers to prepare. And as you'll see in this video, Cassidy has a fun and engaging way of presenting information. It's really great to watch and it will help you succeed in a React job interview. Of that, I am sure. Anyway, without any further ado, here's Cassidy and Alejandro with the mock React interview. I hope you enjoy.
Alejandro, good luck, man. I'll catch you guys in a little bit.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, talk to you soon. We could just keep talking about Chipotle, but I guess
I can talk all day about that.
But I'll introduce myself really quick, then I'll ask you about yourself and then we can get into it. But long story short, hello, my name is Cassidy. I'm a principal developer experience engineer at Netlify. And so what that means is I help improve the experience for developers who are building things for Netlify. And I focus on React and Next.js. And so I'll write tutorials, I'll build demos, and I'll work with the product teams to get features built out. So that way it is an easier time for developers on Netlify. And I've been interviewing people and doing interviews and stuff for too many years now. And so that's kind of just my high level background, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Great.
But I would love to know more about you.
Thank you. My name is Alejandro. I am originally from Mexico. I live in Montreal, Canada now. I thought you were going to wear something cool, and I prepared. So this is my only Christmas sweater, not as cool as yours. My background is in music and sound recording.
Cool.
And I love microphones, so I see you have a pretty cool microphone over there.
It's honestly just a Blue Yeti. It's not particularly fancy.
When I was studying, for me, like Blue was like one of those brands that I thought it was unattainable, and once I started playing with them, they're pretty good. They're really
good. It's impressive. I keep thinking maybe I should get one of those fancy ones, but this gets the job done.
No, it sounds really good. That's all you need. I mean, it's for your voice. So that's it. It works perfectly. So that's my background. I'm a nerd in that way, and I worked for about 10 years in that. I recorded music in general for video games. I still have I still have a little company that I do sound. We make sound and music and in general integrated into video games for indie.
That's awesome.
It is really cool. But then the job market kind of dried out, and audio is not a priority, especially in the new world of like mobile technologies and stuff. Like everything is you're watching it while listening to a podcast. I don't know, there's no room for that. So I started learning coding little by little 5 years ago, and I felt that something catastrophic was going to happen. I kind of foresaw it about 1.5 years ago, and I thought I should take a boot camp. I took a boot camp 1.5 years ago, and now I'm out of a job, and I'm doing I'm powering through, and I really want to transition into this is my career now. There's no going back, so there's no safety net either way. So I'm gonna lean into it and hope for the best, and I'm trying my hardest.
That's awesome. Well, I want to talk to you about the music stuff because I was actually in the Seattle Video Game Orchestra before moving over to Chicago.
Really?
And I've got my trumpet over here.
We might have friends in common.
We might actually.
But
which
you got this interview. It's all you.
yeah, we can talk about this a little bit later. But I see that guitar behind you, so we can talk more. But anyway, so did you start coding game dev when you were first starting, or did you just go straight into like the web side of things?
So my learning has been all over the place because when I started coding, I finished my master's in sound recording in 2015. So I was really happy with that, but I knew many applications of sound recording and video games especially needed some kind of coding thing. And I started learning Python from Udemy, and it was okay, but I never found a way to translate that knowledge. Then Free Code Camp started around 2015, and it was very lacking. And back then,
yeah,
now it's really
huge
good.
now.
It is huge, and it has everything, especially the blogs and the videos.
Yeah,
back then it was.
I'm genuinely jealous of developers who are just learning now, because I'm just like, man, you have everything now.
So I got a little frustrated with that. I didn't know where to go and what to do with the knowledge. And then when I started doing video games, I had to learn. So I learned Unreal Engine. I learned the other one, Unity.
So did you do
tutorials.
C++ with Unreal?
A little bit of C++. I didn't love it. I used mostly the blueprints, and you have to. It's like objects. You connect objects. Yeah. But I was doing C# with Unity, and that I had to learn. And this was all like encompassed in me doing a PhD that didn't really lead anywhere. They promised me, oh, you're going to develop video games, you're going to develop stuff like audio, 3D audio for video games. And then it ended up being like, oh, no, that's not what we want you to do. We want you to teach our classes and shut up. Like, okay, that's fine, but can I still do it? No. If you do it, you won't pass. Like, oh, come on. It was very traditional. So that was my first approach. And I knew a little bit of C++, and a little bit of C#, a little bit of Python, and a little bit of JavaScript, but I didn't know how to do anything with that. And then after that, I took the bootcamp, and everything kind of made sense. And now from like knowing the basics or like the fundamentals of JavaScript, I think I can approach other programming tasks in a better way, because I kind of know what I'm trying to do. So I think I've been self-taught for a while, and I kind of see a problem, and then I like break it apart and find a solution and work my way into it. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
Oh no, you did. No, this is really interesting. It gives me a good background. And so, with the bootcamp, was it mostly a web-focused bootcamp? Are you all JavaScript now?
Yes. That's my main tool now. I still do. I have a friend that I'm working with, and we do data analysis. So he started hit the path of he wants to become a data scientist, and that's all Python and R. But like I won't touch R. It gets too much.
Yeah.
But it's Python, so whenever I review his code, I have to like, oh, this is how it's done. Okay, I forget
a mental shift a little bit.
Yes, especially when in JavaScript is like a variable. When you go inside an object, you do dot, and you go deeper. And I forget that in Python you can't do that, but it doesn't really yell at you when you do it.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work. So when I'm trying to do those things, and I have to have my cheat sheet on the side, and it's mostly web development.
Yeah, whenever I switch to Python, I always accidentally include brackets and like the curly braces and stuff, and gotta cut that out.
Those indentations are hell.
Yeah, Python 3 has more parentheses though, so I can tolerate that. But anyway, so Alex over at Scrimba, he was telling me that you have done a bunch of side projects and stuff. What has been kind of your favorite side project that you've worked on?
I've been freelancing a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And I also have been doing like my own stuff. The latest thing that I really enjoyed is I was taking here I go again, being all over the place. I got a scholarship for like a micro MBA. I don't know if you know this this guy. His name is Scott Galloway. He talks about business and does it ring a bell?
I know the name.
Every young person kind of knows him.
Like I've seen his name before. I couldn't picture him off the top of my head, but I know of this person.
Yeah, well, he's a professor at the business school, Stern Business School in NYU, and he teaches the business, like the MBA courses. And he made like a massive online platform to teach. Like he broke apart the MBA into little modules, and I got a scholarship to take one of those. It was the brand module, and I had to learn a lot about business that I wouldn't know. But then I got excited with that, and I built a project so that the people in business could understand, because it was so massive, the course. It was 1,000 people taking the course. Dang. And I wanted to read everybody's like introductory line, but it was too much. I mean, 1,000 lines of that. So I made a data visualization of the most common words, and I ran a positivity score on that, and I did a bunch of natural language processing on the Slack messages, and I put it all in a blog post explaining how positive people were. And I was trying to take these sciencey concepts and make them as simple as possible so business people could understand them. And it was really fun. It was really cool to work with that.
That's really interesting. And so do you prefer kind of that data side of things, or do you have a preference towards a stack or anything?
I mean, I just like doing things. I like challenges and I like learning.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a preference. If I see something interesting, I pursue it. But I also I'm trying to force myself to stay in a lane and try to get a full-time job, because you can't go into a job and say like, I do a little bit of everything, but not a lot of something. But my stack is React. I either do Next.js or Gatsby. And for the backend, I try to keep it as simple as possible. And sometimes I do Firebase. Sometimes I've been getting into FaunaDB, a little bit of GraphQL, and Node.js. That's kind of my stack.
Cool. Yeah. Once you do get the job, you can go all in on the fun projects and then use that to get different jobs. But yeah, getting in the door, you kind of have to specialize a little bit. I've known many people who fall victim to their own interests because of stuff like that. Cool. So let's start talking about React stuff. That's cool that you know Next and Gatsby, because maybe we can dive a little bit into those too. And so I'm going to, because I know you know things, I'm going to talk about an application. So have you used Imager before?
Imager?
The meme site?
No.
Oh, it's fun. If you want to look it up, it's imgur.com. It's
yeah. I didn't know that you pronounced it that way. I've always read it, but
Imgur? I know a lot of people do Imgur.
You know, I've never pronounced it before.
Well, now you know. I truly found out it was Imager after like years of messing with it. But anyway, let's talk about memes.
So yes.
Let's say that you are building Imager and stuff, and we could say that it's a React and Next.js website. How would you kind of just at a high level structure out the different pages? How would you structure out a user table and a post table and that kind of stuff?
Well, from looking at it, aside from it being really distracting,
I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna click on that and give it an upvote.
I'm trying to think. There's too many things happening. If I were to, do I have to pick like a technology? Or?
Pick it however you want. We can dive into any ones, but you can go as high level as you want.
Okay. So this seems like a social thing, so people have to submit something. I guess their images. So there has to be an like a data intake page. So a user will upload their video or their GIF. Maybe they have a video. There has to be some kind of engine that adapts to our platform and our limitations, because you can't really just upload whatever you want and reproduce it. So I guess some kind of serverless function that converts to the target format, some kind of like a bucket, like an S3 bucket that stores all the user content. Yeah, so once the data is processed, it goes in there, and then a database that stores the usernames and whatever the data lives inside there, like all the data that is related to that user, so all the user content kind of related to that. And from there, I see there's the homepage where the trending, the most viral and the newest. So all that metadata has to go whenever a user adds something to the platform. We have to tag it and make it easily retrievable. And then all the user interactions have to be also stored in the database. So whenever a user opens shares something or interacts with the content, some kind of logic has to happen behind in the server that it informs us that has been some interaction with the content. And then we read those values and put them in the front page to show that these are the most viral, these are the newest. What else? So when you click on a new, when you click on any of these videos or any of these images, GIFs, we would have to have dynamic routes, because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we have to generate everything dynamically. So we'll have some kind of router that takes care of where the user goes if they click on a post that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. So it can't be statically generated. It has to be dynamic, but we can use some server-side rendering for some parts of the page. What else? I guess there's comments. I'm not sure, but all that can be stored in the data object. So each post has comments and a lot of setup with users and comments and
votes and all that.
What else? I see tags.
So let's assume that we're looking at this post page from a React perspective. How would you set up like the components on the page and the interactions and stuff?
I see there's a layout. So all the menus and everything that doesn't change stays there. Those are the in Next.js or in Gatsby, there's the layout components. So those are the ones that don't change, or they change rarely. And then all the dynamic content is what it's inside the layout. I see a lot of reusable components like arrows that the design system, like the simple arrows and buttons, displays, in a like how the page would kind of load. I think it's when the component mounts it fetches the data from the API, so it gets the title, the user that posted it, some data about how many upvotes it has, how many comments, and then as you scroll, well, you of course see the image, and as you scroll, you see the content, the like a caption, I guess, and the links, the tags, all that is, I guess it gets retrieved from the API on Mount, and the comment section, this is pretty much the same. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that answers high level what I wanted to hear, like okay. Making sure pulling things on Mount and stuff. And so from a user perspective, how would you persist a user authentication across the different pages and across the different sites and posts and stuff?
I would try to go with some kind of token with like cookie based token, like a JWT, JSON web token.
Yeah.
So that's,
I love those JWTs.
They're so nice and they have recipes. So all the communication between the client and the server is passing that that cookie, so that key. And then I would store some kind of some state, like in a global state. I would have like user is logged in, so that all the routes can be accessed easily, and you don't have to pass components blindly.
Right. So with that kind of shared state, do you have a preferred way of doing state management across all of these different things?
I am very partial to Redux.
You're rare.
I know. I learned Redux and I hated it. Honestly, the first few.
Most people do.
But the one saving grace for me is the extension, the Chrome extension, and I'm almost sure that React, the context API, maybe someone made one for them, and it's like an exact copy. But I like it so much. So the idea that you can go back in time and you can trace your, because it represents the states as graphs, and it's so nice and beautiful. And the regular React Chrome extension is so ugly. I don't like it.
I do think they're improving it, but I agree with you. I've basically replaced all of my Redux with the Context API plus use reducer, and that has been amazing because it's basically the benefits of Redux without having to deal with Redux.
Yeah, and it's a smaller package.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. You've answered a lot of the things that I've wanted to see, how you manage state and how you manage passing data with components and stuff. And so I'm curious, in terms of where you actually query these serverless functions and stuff, how would you structure that just in folders and stuff in an application? And also, what functionality would you implement? How would you set that kind of stuff up?
Both Gatsby and Next.js have serverless functions sort of built in, and they are AWS Lambda functions. So it's like if you had an API, like a server that only exists in the ether for a few seconds and then it goes away. So I would have in the folder structure, I would have my source and my components, and I like the way that Next.js right off the bat has an API folder where everything lives, because it makes sense. Like this is like my little server, and everything kind of goes there, and all the logic. I would put all the functions, try to spread them out as much as possible, because if you put all the API in one function, then it loads every time. So have little folders with each function, and if a function is going to resize an element, it will only do that. Fetch, well, use the libraries that it has to use, does whatever it has to use and it has to do, and drops it off in the bucket. And if there's another function that, well, I guess that's most of the thing that I would do serverless for. Maybe authentication. Like if I'm just going full serverless, everything that a server does, as far as I know, can be done. Well, as long as it doesn't take more than, what, 15 seconds or 30 seconds?
I forgot what the timeout is.
There's, yeah.
Something like that.
But I usually, sometimes I cheat and just like call another function. Well, it's not cheating, but you know.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then let's see, I had one last question. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh my gosh, what was it? You've answered pretty much all I want you to answer. I had one more. You know what? It'll probably come to me.
Okay.
But yay, you built Imager.
Yay.
Yay. If I come up with it, I'll let you know. But I think you actually kind of answered it as we were talking. So
thank you.
That works out. But do you have any questions for me about anything before we start going over what we've talked about?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. Well, not a bunch, but I have a few questions for you in general, not regarding this application, but we can do them in the end, or we can do them now.
Yeah, let's do it now. Might as well.
Okay. So my context for these questions is that I'm going to go deep into the job search soon. My plan is to start in January. I've had a few unsuccessful applications, but I don't know. Well,
those happen.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are. And I wanted to get your perspective on a few things. One of them is, how can I tell from an interview if it's a company that I want to work for?
Like culture-wise?
Yes.
So I have a few different tricks for that. So first of all, when I'm interviewing with people, whether it's an on-site video call or whatever, when I'm interviewing with people, I always ask them, what is most important to the company? Is it the customer? Is it the employee? Or is it the product? Okay. And none of those are a wrong answer. But what's important to me is hearing, does everybody answer that consistently? And that tells me multiple things. That tells me, for example, just how consistent is communication across the company? Are people all on the same page? Stuff, because I've talked to some teams where everyone answers something differently, and that tells me, okay, I need to probe a little further on how messaging is across. But then I've talked with some companies where they immediately are just like, oh, the employees, and it's immediate, and you're just like, okay, if that is the case, great, and you kind of get the answers in your head about the company culture a little bit, and you know that communication is good, because I think there's all kinds of good and bad signs in a company, but knowing that they communicate well is huge. And so that's one that I ask. And then also figuring out the work-life balance side of things. Now, you are into music, I'm into music. I want to find out, will I have time to do music if I work at this company? Will I have time to play video games? Will I have time to hang out with friends and stuff? And so asking about work-life balance, you can just say, how's your work-life balance? But getting more specific, like, how many times would you say you work more than 40 hours a week? And hearing about that, because a lot of times people might say, well, it's a startup. And that's an immediate sign like, okay, that means that you don't have any. And then there are sometimes where it's just like, I sign off at 5 p.m. every single day. And sometimes there's something in between. And sometimes people are like, well, when it's crunch time, I admit we have to work harder, but otherwise it's pretty laid back. And so asking those kinds of questions to really gauge on culture, I think really, really helps. And then also for myself, and this might vary for different people, I always ask, if I haven't seen a lot of women, I ask if I can talk to one. Okay. And then sometimes if I've seen men and women, but I haven't seen like a person of color, I'll ask, hey, do you have anybody from a more diverse background that I can talk to? Because it's good to get that perspective, because you never know where it might be all sunshine and flowers, but then when you talk to someone, they might be like, it's kind of tough, and we have each other's backs, but it can be tough. And then sometimes they're just like, these people are great, they have all of these initiatives, blah blah blah. I've seen both sides of that, and it's really useful to find that person who can be honest about it, because that can be necessary sometimes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much.
Great.
It does make sense. Yeah, it's a good way to probe for, like, target the question and try to get the answer. My next question is, how can I stand out as a junior candidate? I know that having a strong portfolio is for sure one thing, because you have to go, if the 10 seconds that the recruiter is going to look at your stuff, that's the first filter. But after that, I want to go into the interview with with an advantage, because I can work on some things in advance. Like I can work on my portfolio, I can work on my CV, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much competition that there has to be one thing that I want to show, that works across companies.
Yeah, exactly. And so the first thing, it sounds obvious, but write a cover letter for every company you apply to. Okay. Because there are so many times where people are just like, oh, but nobody reads those. People read those. Yeah. Like when I'm hiring, I read every cover letter that comes my way, because there are some times where I'll look at a resume and I'm just like, well, I don't know if they have the right background, but then I read their cover letter, and there was literally one that I read a few months ago where someone said, my job title isn't accurate to what I actually do. Here's what I actually do. And they explained it. Mm-hmm. And suddenly we were just like, actually, he should get an interview then, because of what we've learned about this person. And so first of all, always write a cover letter. And even if there isn't a form for a cover letter, attach it to your resume file, just so that way it's there. Yeah, it's a sneaky way of getting it in. Okay. Yeah. Because yes, you should have like a one-page resume, but if there's a second page that's a cover letter, that's not the end of the world. It's a way of getting it in if a company isn't accepting those. And then for actually standing out on your resume and stuff, it can be tough. So first of all, including your projects, you don't have to include every project you've ever done, but the ones that show your specialty. Because I know for you have a wide variety of interests, and I think that is awesome. But a lot of times people are just like, okay, but do they know React? Like, will they be able to actually contribute to this project? And so like, you might have to tailor which projects you show depending on the job that you're applying to, but make sure if the job requirement said you need to know React and Node, make sure the projects on your resume show React and Node. Okay. And then you don't necessarily need to include an objective, especially with a cover letter. A lot of people are just like, to get a front-end job, and you're kind of like, well, no, duh, you're applying for one. So I would kind of fill up the space with the projects that you've done, with the freelance work you've done especially, and then also just very specifically list the skills that you have. So, okay. React, JavaScript, and separate them out by like front-end languages, back-end languages, technologies. You don't need to include Microsoft Excel or something like that. To try to keep it as relevant to the job as possible. Mm-hmm. And then also, depending on the company you're speaking with, if you're from Mexico, include that you speak Spanish too. Because some companies that I've applied to, they'll be a client-facing company, some kind of consulting company, who have clients who speak other languages. And I that genuinely can help with jobs. I've seen some companies where they're just like, we need developers who can speak English and French. If you could speak English and French, that would be great, because of where tech teams are located and stuff. So, including those. And also, it's very dumb, but it works. Make your name the biggest thing on the page.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be like 92-point font, but if you make it big, people remember your name more. And it's a little trick that helps you stand out a bit more.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have one more question related to this, and one that can perfectly fit in the end if you still have time. And thank you so much for doing all this, because I really appreciate it. What should I, if you were in my position where I'm going to, where you were going to apply for a job, like you were the aspiring junior that I am, if you're going to apply for a job in a few months, like in a month and a half, how would you spend your time? And my options that I could come up with is learn more things, like learn more technologies and showcase those, or showcase what I already know and do more of that, or write some blog posts, because I'm also getting into writing and I really like it. I like explaining stuff. I don't know. That's all I can come up with. I don't know what else I could do with my time.
There are so many options here. And the fact that you're willing to write blog posts is huge, because a lot of people don't want to do that. So yes, write your blog posts. The Twitter network works. And I think networking will be the biggest part of this. And if you're open to reading a book, there's a great book called Build Your Dream Network by Kelly Hoey. It is a great book where she just talks about the importance of networking and just good tips for networking in the tech industry and stuff, called Build Your Dream Network. It's great. So as you're applying to jobs, this is what my strategy would be, knowing what I know now and what I tell you to do. First of all, whenever you do have a idea for a blog post, even if it's a paragraph, just write it. Write it, tweet it, post it on LinkedIn. Get it across the network so that way it gets eyes. Use hashtags that are common for junior developers, like Code Newbie, 100 Days of Code, stuff like that. I would apply to no less than 10 jobs a day, which is a lot, but trust me, it works. Like it's job applications are a numbers game. And a lot of people are just like, oh, I should really apply for the jobs that fit me. And I don't agree. You should apply for every job that's available, especially for your first one. And a lot of times it might not be your dream company, but there are so many advantages to that. First of all, it's a good interview practice if you get far in it. And second of all, if they end up being great, you might end up working for a company that you never would have considered. I've joined companies before that I truly never would have considered, but the interview process made me love them, and they've been awesome. And again, it's like entering raffles. The more you enter, you might win one, and it's just like that with jobs, and everybody's hiring tech people. You just have to find the place, like Sweetwater, the website for musicians and stuff. They hire web developers. They're looking for web developers, but people don't consider them because they're a music site. And so think of any businesses. Think of Chipotle. They're hiring web developers, or at least they're hiring a company to do the web development. You can talk to that company, and chances are you can find that information on the website. When I was first applying to junior developer roles, I was applying to literally every company I could think of. I applied at like Fender Guitars. I applied at Taco Bell. I applied at all of these different companies because everyone needs tech people. And so you never know where you'll find those. And as terrible as the pandemic is, it has opened up people's minds to remote work. And so you can apply everywhere, and chances are you can find a job that is open to you. And I've known so many people who get jobs from Twitter, from posting on dev.to, from posting on LinkedIn and stuff, just because they're getting the right hashtags out there and interacting with people enough. And there's also really nice online communities like on Discord and on just all of these various mediums where you never know who might know a job opportunity. And there are so many Discords where it's mostly developers, and then someone might say, hey, a friend of mine's hiring. If anybody's looking, let me know. And that could be your in at a job.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, those are my main questions.
Cool. And then you had one that you said we could save to the end if needed?
Yeah, it was mostly about like if you could recommend your favorite resources, but you've mentioned a few, and like being part of communities, it's something that I never knew before, honestly, even in music, because communities in music are very, well, maybe you have a different perspective, but like, especially in sound engineering, it's like very basementy. And you do go out to drink, but you can't really go out to drink now. You know, it's not a big community, and because there's so few people that actually do it, but there's a lot of people that are aspiring to do it, and it's a very different world.
It's a very different environment.
Yeah, but here in development, I see that there is a huge community. I'm surprised of how many people. Like, I follow not very many people on Twitter, but it is something that gives me hope for humanity. It's crazy, like how some communities in Twitter are so toxic, and some others are so like nice, and they're always giving, and that's what I've gotten from developer Twitter, is nice people trying to help.
Yeah. There are so many great people, and there are several Discords. Like even my own personal Discord channel is my favorite corner of the internet. There's a channel called Party Corgi where it's truly just all developers who also do side projects and make content. That is a great one. I recommend looking that one up, Party Corgi. There's one where it's people who speak both English and Spanish, and it's called Front End Cafe. That's a really great one. And also just the Egghead community as well, like egghead.io, the learning site. They have a really good one, and also the Scrimba one as well. Scrimba has a really active Discord, which I'm sure you've seen that one. The connections in these Discord channels are so great because it feels tight-knit even when it's not, because you're chatting with people live.
Right, that's perfect. I think those are. I have one last one, but I don't want to take that much time.
It's okay. We got the time.
Thank you. Should I do a certification? Should I go for the AWS developer thingy? Okay.
I wouldn't. I would do those when you have a company that will pay for it for you.
Okay.
Just
cool.
That rarely helps people get junior developer jobs. It might help you get to like the next level after that, but for an entry-level job, have a company pay for that for you.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all the questions that I had, actually.
Great. Well, and then with regards to the technical stuff, you clearly know your stuff. I was impressed with all of your answers, and there were a couple times where you got lost in your own thoughts, but you found your way out of it. So I guess kind of watch out for that, but that happens in an interview setting all the time. And so I don't hold it against anybody, but you never know who you might be talking to. Whenever you are talking about the database of anything, chances are you won't talk about it much. They'll go like very high level. Typically just say something like, okay, I'd have a table. There will be an ID as a primary key, username, post, and just say we'll have columns for each of those, and kind of leave it high level at that, because that shows that you understand how a database is structured, and then you can move into the rest of it. Because as you were describing it, you did a good job. I knew where you were coming from, but again, getting lost in the thoughts of how it could be structured can trip people up. Besides that, you knew the component lifecycle well. You described that well. I'm glad that you talked about the design system a little bit of how the site would work, and how API functions would work, serverless functions. Yeah, overall, I think you know your stuff, and you're ready for a real-time interview.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do, like this and everything else. I watch your live streams whenever I can, and I learn a lot. Yeah, like that's why I knew I would have to wear something cool. And if I didn't find this sweater, I actually had a bacon costume, like a Halloween costume that I had somewhere. That was my second option.
That is such a compliment. I appreciate that.